Okay, so today we're going to talk to Charlotte Foulston, who's one of our cost lawyers here at Bidwell Henderson, and Chelsea Alcock is joining us from the Marketing and Business Development Department. So thank you so much for talking to us, Charlotte. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions and see what you can tell us about your job and your history and costs. So if we could start with a little bit of background on you and how you got into the job, I think that's the perfect place to start.
Yep, hello, it's nice to see you. Well, I started working at a solicitor's firm when I was 18 as a clerical assistant, I think is what they're now known as. At the time, it was office junior. And then I worked my way up to becoming a secretary. And then was assigned to the family department, so kind of dedicated to that team. I then started working on the qualification to become a legal executive, and did the first 2 years of that course, and moved into a paralegal role of attending court with barristers, seeing clients on injunction matters, basic, taking instructions, things like that. And then, unfortunately, I suffered ill health quite unexpectedly, and had to take a significant period of time off work to recover from that. And when I did go back to work, one factor was in managing my health condition was stress, and I decided that I needed to be more office based rather than turning up to work one day and having to run out to court, to represent a client or something like that. So a role was made for me initially to deal with legal help costs. So I would prepare the legal help claims for the family department. We're still attached to that department. And then it effectively just snowballed from there. It went from 2 days a week costing legal helps to then putting in procedures, basically from the conclusion of a case to payment from the legal aid agency. So it was putting in procedures for both legal help and legal aid. What happened once a case had concluded, the file being sent to be costed, whether I costed it myself, which I did limited costing at the time, or whether it was sent to an external cost draftsman and I dealt with the processing. I then liaised with the accounts department following receipt of, monies from the legal aid agency and marrying all that up, dealing with, any recoupments from the legal aid agency. Then the final part was closing the file and, ensuring that any documents were sent back to the clients, making sure final letters were done, etc. The matter was closed on the case management system. The physical file was sent away. And then, again, it expanded further, because then I became involved when in legal aid audits and legal help audits. So I had contact with the legal aid agency's contract manager, who would, if they wanted to audit files, they'd send the list of files to myself, and I would carry out a pre-audit audit of those files and, try and identify any ones that could potentially have issues, and, then go through the audit process and then deal with, any issues that needed to be resolved following the audit. So it, as I say, it started off as a very limited role and then expanded to basically I was the cost department for the family department at the firm I worked for. And then I was actually made redundant from that firm. So then decided to move from effectively spending the majority of my time processing to the costing side to expand on that area. And was very lucky, managed to get a job with a costing firm and, learn and a lot on the job, from, I think I'd effectively done small claim ones and claim 1As at the time. So moved into preparing bills, high cost case plans, still kind of kept my toes in processing with a couple of clients that needed, assistance, and we did that with them. And then after a few years, I then went back into the processing side. And then in that role, again, it was kind of expanded on both fronts, because it was meant to be just processing, but then turned into costing and processing. But that was, I had a lot of travelling time with that role, which obviously, eats into daily life as well. So then made the jump to being self-employed. And contacted a certain somebody, Ms. Bidwell, and the rest is history.
And you are a huge part of our team. And for anybody who's watching this, so Charlotte specialises in particular in the most sort of difficult cases that we have now. So you've progressed further in that way, and you spend a lot of your time dealing with high cost cases, which are the most complicated cases that we deal with on the legal aid side. And so you're a cost lawyer as well. So you did the cost lawyer qualification. And now most of your time is spent, would you say, doing high cost cases with other work around the sides?
Yes, probably I'd say 75% is high cost cases. And then it's just fitting in legal aid files and legal help files kind of as fillers in between. But a large thing with high cost cases is you can set them up and running, but then the ongoing management of those does take up a significant amount of time.
Okay, so the job of a low cost draftsman is quite an unusual one, in that a lot of people have no idea what it is, unless you're in the legal industry in some way. You probably would never come across the job of a low cost draftsman. And I think a lot of people fall into the job, and then, they realise that they actually love it. But from an advertising point of view, it's really difficult to kind of get the message out about what the job is and how it all works. I think what would be really nice is if we could just all talk about the things that we think are really important for when we're looking for certain skills for our new recruits, and what you think people should kind of bring to the role, and the kind of people we should be looking for.
Well, I think people with patience, people who are focused and determined. And also problem solvers, because costing and a lot, especially in high costs, a big part of it is problem solving.
Absolutely.
And because it's
attention to detail as well, isn't it? It's being able to check your own work and make sure that it's correct. Because there are consequences if the work goes out incorrectly. And whilst we have all this, we have a training program and we have checkers who are going to check the work, I think it is really important for people to be able to have that ability to want to make sure that what they've produced is accurate, and then be ready to kind of move on to the next thing. So being able to manage their own workloads. I
think objectivity is a good skill as well, because, for example, I cost a file and I prepare the bill, the high cost case plan, the claim. Then when I come to check it, I try and look at it through somebody else's eyes. Because you can fall into that. You've done it, you can read what you want to see, and you need to, in effect, read what's actually there and have the ability to not so much criticise your own work, but think I could do this part better, I could word this better, it kind of self-improvement, and especially, I mean, it's in terms of ICOS cases and negotiations, having that objectivity comes in handy as well, because you can have clients who, they've done the work, they want to get paid for every single penny, and obviously it's our job to achieve that wherever possible. But there are occasions when you enter into negotiations with the legal aid agency, and you get to a point where you could be 10 foot apart in terms of negotiations, and you have to be able to look at it from, again, a third party point of view as to what is the best possible outcome I can achieve for the client, but bearing in mind similar cases, would this be allowed? And so I think you've definitely objectivity.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, actually, because I think the people that are really successful in this career are the ones that continually invest in improving their learning and improving their skills constantly. So it's not a job to kind of sit there and switch off to. It's one that if you invest in continually learning and in improving your skills and having that ability to sort of check your work in that way, that is what works so well for the job. I think that's incredibly helpful, actually. I think you've literally hit the nail on the head there.
Oh, I don't think you can do this job and just I couldn't do it and be happy with whatever level I am. I'm always wanting to improve to the next level.
Self-improvement.
I completely agree with you. I think that's what it is. I think that's the difference between a great cost draftsman and somebody who kind of is good. I think it's good and great, isn't it? Amazing. Okay. With our new trainees that we're looking for, is there any advice you would give them for their first few months, do you think? Is there anything that you wish you'd known when you went into this industry?
I think I wished I would have had and as sad as this sounds, I wished I would have had the Civil Finance Handbook when I first started. And as silly as that sounds,
it's not.
No, it's just little everyday things that you can spend. You could do the same thing every day for 6 months, and you could just do it, and it just it becomes second nature. And that on that one occasion when you stop and actually think about it, if you get distracted or something like that, and then you second guess yourself. It's there, and in fairness, it is quite a good document. I would just, one bit of advice is just soak up advice, soak up help from anywhere you can get it, and just trial and error. Just even with things like computer software that we use, just have a play around with the settings. Everybody uses it slightly differently in how they set it up. Find something that suits you, because you're the one that's going to be doing it day in, day out on the files that you're going to be costing. So you need to come up with a system that works for you, and how you approach a file when you're costing it, how you even down to how you approach it when you're checking it once you've produced the document. Come up with something that works for you. We have standardizations to a certain point, but you need to make it work for you. It's I could sit here and say, oh, I do it this way, that way. That might not work for you. You need to find something that you're comfortable with, and that gives you confidence as well, because that's a big part of it. Confidence is producing something, checking it, and knowing that you're going to send it to a client and that you're happy to send it to a client. You have to put yourself in the client's point, from the client's perspective as well. If you receive this document from somebody else, would you be happy with it?
Yeah.
So
That's really good advice. I wish I'd had that at the start of my career.
Yeah. Well, it's like when with Emily, when I did that bit of training with her, and when I've done some training with a client, and I said to them, I can sit here and tell you to do it this way or that way because that is how I do it, but that might not work for you. And you got
to invest your own time in finding out what it is that that works for you, because we all work in different ways, don't we? I'm very much like, I need to see something on a page to be able to retain the information. Could you give us a bit of an overview, Charlotte, of what a kind of a day in your costing week is like?
Yes, well, it's say for example, if I've got a high cost case that I'm currently working on, or it could be a client provides an update to say, either something's changed in the proceedings, which requires amendments to the document. There's also obviously high cost cases. They need to be maintained and managed over the case lifetime. So it's having tasks set up. That do I need to chase fee earners for updates? Has a particular case come to an end at a certain point, so further work needs to be done? So it's managing and maintaining going cases. Obviously, if a client gets in touch with high cost cases, they are quite fast paced and we do have deadlines. So, it's responding quite quickly. Maybe making urgent arrangements for them to send files if it's a paper file, or, if it's a virtual file, accessing the file, dealing with the work, whatever needs to be done. Then obviously once the document's been produced, checking that objectively, to ensure that I'm happy for it to be sent out, and then obviously getting the client's approval of the document. Maybe that there are occasions when you may need to schedule a call with a client to if there are some elements of unknown or something that you need further instructions on. So it's finding time for that to take place, given everybody's calendars, diaries. And then obviously we have the processing team. So if it's a client who we offer processing services to, it's then obviously collating all the documents that need to be uploaded or passed to the processing team, so they can then take over and do their part. But it's
quite varied, isn't it? You've got a lot kind of going on. You're juggling a lot at the same time.
It can be. I mean, some days you can receive a random email from a client it's not necessarily an ongoing case. It's another case that I've had requests. Can I advise them on terms of an order to make sure that from a costing point of view that that they're getting the provisions correct. So it's just double checking things like that and providing advice on how you can make it maybe a little bit more watertight. From the LAA's point of view, it is, I think, costing as well is you have to kind of split yourself into three in effect. You have to see it from your own point of view to be able to do the work, but you have to see it from the client's point of view and also from the legal aid agency's point of view. But yes, a day can be quite varied. Some days you can just sit working on one file from 9 till 5 p.m. You might not have any interruptions and you've just got a day of being able, solid work, and you can achieve, a massive amount. Other days you can, they can be a bit more bitty and you can have interruptions and stops and starts and but I suppose that's the same with any job. You know, you can have days where it's stop and start, and
yeah, I think that's absolutely true. What I'd love to know from you, Charlotte, is what is it you like about the job? What is it that kind of that you really enjoy? Which aspects?
Oh, I love the problem solving.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
When you can sometimes, cases vary and files vary. You can get, you know, a file that is perfect, and you know it's all time recorded, it's all in order, and it's lovely, and it's a joy to work on, and you can produce the bill, and it, you know, it's a relatively simple task, and I still get satisfaction out of, you know, those.
Yeah.
You can go to the extreme and you can get a file that, you know, you spend half a day having to put in order and sort out before you can even start costing. And I get even more satisfaction out of those because they're so much more difficult to, you know, you get to the end of it and you think, this is what I've produced and achieved out of that. But, you know, it's like with high cost cases, you can prepare a high cost case plan, submit it to the legal aid agency, and I always have in the back of my mind when I do that, this is what I've got, a list of things that I think they're going to come back with, or question items, and they could come back and say it's agreed as drafted, and it can be quite a shock because you're really not expecting that. You know, or they can come back with you know, with an offer, you put forward a counter offer, you can go backwards and forwards quite a few times, but by the end of it you can achieve a positive result. And you know, and that's based on your experience and, you know, the knowledge that you've got, and you know, things like that that you can, you know, all bring together. As well, I like, in a way, I like the solitude. It is quite a solitary job. You know, you are sat on your own with a file of papers for, you know, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, if you know that's what I work. And I, you know, I do enjoy that, you know, to a certain extent. You can just get on with it, and you know, and you can achieve a lot. And so